they had home court advantage, and the New York Knicks knocked them off. I think some of the luster was taken off of it because we saw Jason Tatum go down. That takes some of the luster off Boston, of it. But I still say when you come within 2 games of an NBA Finals, nobody anticipated that once we knew that they were going to run into Boston in the postseason.
The New York Knicks just wrapped up a season that left fans feeling a strange mix of pride and frustration. On one hand, they made it to the Eastern Conference Finals for the first time since 2000, an incredible achievement for a franchise that struggled for decades. On the other hand, there's a lingering question. Did the Knicks actually overachieve? Or was this level of success something they were always capable of? That's exactly what ESPN's Stephen A. Smith and Jay Williams debated on First Take. And their disagreement highlights the deeper narrative around this team. Stephen A. didn't mince words. He believes the Knicks absolutely overachieved this season. According to him, nobody expected them to be within 2 wins of the NBA Finals. They weren't favored to get past the second round, and yet here they were, battling it out in the Eastern Conference Finals like a team that had no business being there, at least on paper. For Stephen A., it wasn't just about the wins. It was about defying expectations, proving critics wrong, and showing a level of grit that hasn't been associated with the Knicks in a long time. In his words, they came within 2 games of an NBA Finals. That's not just success, that's overachievement. But Jay Williams pushed back, strongly. He doesn't think the Knicks overachieved. He thinks they played to their potential. To Jay Will, the narrative of overachieving almost lets the organization off the hook. It implies that this team wasn't talented enough to get where they did, and that's not the case in his view. He sees a roster with the right pieces, the right coach, and a hungry mentality that finally delivered on what was always possible. Saying they overachieved, in his eyes, diminishes the legitimacy of their success and glosses over the shortcomings that were exposed in the playoffs. The core of their disagreement lies in the framing. For Stephen A., this season was a Cinderella story. A banged-up roster, no superstar-level scorer, and yet they took down teams with more firepower and experience. He points to injuries throughout the season, including key players like Julius Randle and OG Anunoby missing significant time. The Knicks could have folded, but instead they found strength in their depth, with guys like Josh Hart, Dante DiVincenzo, and Jalen Brunson stepping up in huge ways. That kind of resilience, Stephen A. argues, is exactly why the season was such an overachievement. Will, meanwhile, zeroed in on development and expectations. He noted that the Knicks entered the season with momentum. Jalen Brunson had a breakout year last season. The front office had built a solid, defensive-minded roster, and while they weren't favorites, they weren't underdogs either. To him, what we saw in the playoffs, especially the team's cohesion and ability to compete against higher seeds, wasn't a surprise. It was the natural progression of a team that's been building the right way for a few years now. Overachievement, in this case, feels like a backhanded compliment. Stephen A. also brought up the emotional weight of being a Knicks fan. This is a franchise that has let down its supporters more times than they can count. So when a team like this finally gives fans something to believe in, it feels like a miracle. He mentioned how the atmosphere in Madison Square Garden during the playoffs was electric, not because fans thought they'd win a championship, but because they were witnessing a rare and thrilling overperformance. For many Knicks fans, this was the first time in years they felt proud of their team in May. Jay Williams doesn't deny the emotional aspect, but he cautioned against letting emotion cloud analysis. Yes, the Knicks were inspiring, but that doesn't mean they were punching above their weight. If anything, Jay Will argued, they underachieved in the final rounds. He pointed to some questionable rotations from Tom Thibodeau, a lack of offensive diversity when Brunson was heavily guarded, and the fact that they were unable to adjust once Miami or Boston, depending on the hypothetical matchup, applied playoff pressure. If you're going to say they overachieved, then you risk ignoring those tactical flaws. The discussion eventually spiraled into something bigger. What should the Knicks do next? Stephen A. argued that the Knicks need a true superstar. Brunson is a star, no doubt, but to win it all, they need someone who can dominate a playoff series in multiple ways. He floated names like Donovan Mitchell and even hinted at the possibility of Joel Embiid if things go south in Philly. To keep building on this year's overachievement, the Knicks need to take a risk, get aggressive in the trade market, and strike while the iron is hot. Will responded with more caution. He believes the Knicks shouldn't overreact to this season, whether they call it overachievement or not. Instead of mortgaging their future for a star who may or may not fit, they should double down on player development and continuity. What this team has is chemistry, and breaking that up could backfire. Jay Will argued that the Knicks already have the core of a championship contender, and that the key is patience, not panic. Stephen A. wasn't having it. "This is New York," he shouted. "We don't do patience, we do parades or pain, and I'm tired of pain." That line perfectly summed up his stance, and honestly, the attitude of many Knicks fans. The fan base has been waiting so long for a contender that any opportunity to strike gold feels urgent. And when you get this close to the finals, it's hard not to wonder if one more big move could have put you over the top. Still, Jay Will pushed back with numbers. He brought up the team's defensive rating, their improvement in assists per game, their excellent fourth-quarter performances, all signs of a team that's not lucky, but actually good. The Knicks didn't win because other teams collapsed. They won because they're well-coached, well-conditioned, and most importantly, well-built. If they stick to their plan, he argued, they could contend for years without blowing it up for a single star. Throughout the segment, you could feel the tension, not personal animosity, but the real philosophical divide that exists when talking about teams like the Knicks. Are you supposed to celebrate the moment or scrutinize the missed opportunities? Is it enough to be proud of the run, or should you be mad they didn't go further? And maybe the answer is both. As the Knicks head into the offseason, the debate between Stephen A. and Jay Will mirrors the one happening in front offices and living rooms all across New York. Was this the peak, or just the beginning? Should they go all in for a superstar, or stick with their core and trust the process? No matter which side you're on, one thing is clear. The Knicks are no longer a joke. They're in the conversation. And that in itself is worth celebrating. But if you're Stephen A., celebration comes with urgency. He's calling for a win-now move. No more rebuilding, no more waiting. He wants titles, he wants rings, and he wants them now. If you're Jay Will, the message is different. Trust the system. Don't overreach. Don't overreact. This wasn't overachievement. This was just step one. And somewhere in the middle, that's probably where the truth lies. Because yes, the Knicks shocked people this year. And yes, they still have room to grow. Whether you call it overachievement or not, what they did was real. And what comes next might just be bigger. No matter how you label it, overachievement or rightful progression, one thing is undeniable. The New York Knicks have reignited something powerful in the heart of basketball's most passionate city. After years of false starts, lottery picks, and front office chaos, this season felt like a reawakening. The Knicks weren't just good. They were relevant. They were feared. They gave fans a reason to believe again. And in a city where sports legacies are written in sweat and spotlight, that means everything. This wasn't a feel-good fluke. It was the culmination of smart roster construction, unselfish play, and a locker room culture that finally clicked. Even if you side with Stephen A. and believe the team overachieved, that doesn't make it any less impressive. And if you're with Jay Williams, arguing they simply met their ceiling, then that only raises the bar for what comes next. What's even more important is what this season represents long-term. The Knicks didn't just win games, they changed the perception around the franchise. Free agents are watching, fans are showing up. National analysts are talking about them without sarcasm. Young players like Quentin Grimes, Miles McBride, and even RJ Barrett before the trade showed signs of growth in meaningful moments.